Hey everyone, I am Irene Caldo, your reporter for today for Contemporary Global Governance. Contemporary global governance or modern global governance highlights how the system work in today's 21st century, especially after the Cold War and into globalization. Today, I will report on how the states interact in world politics. States continuously engage with one another, but the relationship are not always the same. This is because states differ in their characteristics. One major difference is their level of power and the influence that they hold. This eventually leads us to the key questions in world politics of who gets what, when, and how. Then let's proceed with global homogeny and changing power dynamics. So in global homogeny, this is basically the dominance of one leading power. It refers to the dominance of one state or group of states in a global politics, economics, military, or culture. The hegemon, which is leading power, sets the rules, values, norms that shape the international relations. For example, is after the World War II, the United States emerged as the global hegemon, influencing institutions like the UN, IMF, the World Bank, and promotes liberal democracy and free market systems. Let's proceed with changing dynamics, power dynamics. So it is when shift from one dominant state to a more complex and shared system of influence. So the global power shifting is from the unipolarity, which is one superpower in World War after World War Three, it is the U.S. to a more multipolar world or the many which centers power. So the driving change for this power dynamics is are the rise of emerging powers like China, Brazil, India, and regional blocs like the European countries and ASEAN, which are then becoming more influential. There is also the decline of the U.S. unipolarity. While they are still in power, the U.S. dominance are facing challenges. Then there is the globalization and interdependence. No single state can solve world issues or global issues like climate change or the pandemic alone. There are also the non-state actors, which are the corporations, NGOs, or the non-government organization, terrorist group, and tech companies that now shape the global affairs. Then let's proceed with technology and power transformation. So for technology and power transformation, we have hard power, which is based on the coercion and military might, and the soft power, which is the power of persuasion through culture, values, and public opinion. So, contrary to the hard power, which is the coercion or the military power, technology has proven that it's also had the influence the behavior of the governments and international organization through the soft power, which is the power of persuasion that then influence the public opinions around the world. Next would be the security, the second key factor in world politics. So how can people live safely, free, and from threats and violence? So in world politics, security is a big concern because power is not shared equally among states. So inside their own borders, states create systems to keep peace and order. But internationally, security is harder since the world is seen as unstable and threatening. So we have so let's proceed with the security dilemma. The state there is a state insecurity in which the state perceive global environment as anarchical or threatening. It is how a country or a state considers other countries as threatening to them. Then there's the escalation, which leads to arm race and permanent sense of insecurity. This escalation further fuels the insecurity of other states with the military, which then leads to the military build up. So this military build up states is where states increase military power for their self defense, and then next would be the perceived threat. Other states view military buildup as threatening. As I said earlier, that's where the state insecurity begins. Then let's proceed with the addressing security concerns. So there is this collective security means which the countries agree to protect each other. If one country attacks, all the countries that unite within the collective security agreement all unite and fight against it. So the goal is to stop wars and keep peace by acting together instead of alone. So there are this, but however, there are non-military threats for. So aside from the military threats, there are also exist the non-military threats, which includes um, environmental destruction, disease, which like the pandemic, refugee crisis, in where a country that are going into war have their fellow men uh migrate or go to another country and became refugees, and the scarcity of resources in environmental destruction. Caused by environmental destruction, there are limited resources and scarcity occurs. Next, let's proceed with the justice justice, the third key factor in world politics. So, international, there are three factors in justice, which are international justice, just war theory, and global or cosmopolitan justice. For international justice, it means that states should treat each other fairly, and they should respect each other's independence and not interfere in internal affairs. In just war theory, it says that war is only justified if it's fought for the right reasons and carried out in a fair way. However, in the global or cosmopolitan justice, this means that the moral values apply to everyone, no matter their country or citizenship. In short, all people deserve an equal rights and fair treatment. Next would be the manifestations of global justice. So we have the doctrine of international human rights. It is all people deserve basic rights and dignity. For example, is the UN's Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Then we have the environmental justice, in where everyone should be treated fairly in environmental laws. For example, is protecting poor communities from toxic waste dumping. Next would be the distributive justice. So wealthier nations should help reduce global inequality. For example, is providing foreign aid to a developing countries for education and health. Then the last one is the global environmental justice. It is the where the vulnerable groups should not suffer from the most environmental harm. For example, is small like islands from a nation facing sea levels climate from a climate change. Then let's proceed with the goals of international governance. So there are three factors in world politics on how the world works and how the state concerns emphasis the need for order and stability that may provide in form of international governments. The international governance on its had the following goals. First is the physical security. It is to provide a security to the citizens of all states. Then the environmental stability. It is to guarantee the stable reproduction of natural environment. Then the third one would be the economic livelihood. It is to ensure the livelihood, and that refers to the production and distributions of the needs and services. Then let's proceed to the what are the failures of this international government. So unfortunately, international governance has failed in with these goals that they have set. Uh, first would be the persistent conflict, in where wars and armed conflicts are still happening in many different places around the world. For example, would be the the war between Russia and Ukraine, or the ongoing war between Israel and uh, Palestine. Then we have the environmental degradation. So in environmental destruction, there are pollution, the greenhouse effect caused by the leading products that have CFC. Then it eventually would cost people's lives and livelihoods worldwide. And this environmental policy agreement doesn't affect or doesn't appear to be effective at all. Then last would be the global inequality. So poverty is still one of the leading problem of the world, and globalization continues to widen the gap between nations, and that creates a poor and rich gap between different nations. Then, and international governance has a difficulty in regulating its market forces. So that's all for contemporary global governance.